Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and I just finished installing this luxury vinyl plank floor into this kitchen. Previously it had a sheet vinyl that was probably from the 1960s or the 70s, and so I think we've made a big improvement here. In this video I'm going to go step by step on the entire process of installing. I'm going to talk about the tools that you're going to want to have, and I'm going to share what might be an unpopular opinion about installation and something that goes against the manufacturer's recommendation. So, let's get started. Okay, so I recently did an entire house wall to wall in this luxury vinyl plank. It installs basically the same way as the laminate, but I think for most people it's a little better product. So now I want to cover some tools that you will definitely need and some tools that you should probably want if you can fit them into your budget. So I'll start with the most obvious things. You'll need a tape measure and a pen to mark your cuts. Another fairly obvious thing is a tapping block, a pull block, and a dead blow hammer. Usually when you buy your flooring, you'll find these three tools in a kit. Something you might not think of is a trim puller for removing the trim on the existing flooring, an undercut saw. You can get a manual undercut saw, or I'm using this little Sawzall and it makes it a little bit easier. Then you're going to want a jigsaw for irregular cuts. Next, I want to mention this laminate flooring cutter that saves a tremendous amount of time. So they are about $200, but it's something you should give some thought to. And right now it's got the safety pin in it, which doesn't allow that blade to come up when it's not in use. You push down and pull the safety pin out, and then this basically works like a guillotine, and it makes it about that much effort to cut through the laminate. The last thing I wanted to mention is knee pads. I would definitely recommend getting some knee pads or a foam board to put your knees on. I've got these Caterpillar work pants that have removable knee pads in these little pockets right here. I'll put links in the description for all of the tools I've mentioned. Here's something else I wanted to point out, that a lot of laminate or this vinyl plank will have color variations. This is pretty extreme, that there's a white, a light gray, and a very dark gray, and this all came out of one box. But then the next four pieces out of that same box were all the dark gray. So it's important to open up a couple boxes at a time at least, so that you don't end up with all dark color on one side of the room and the light color on the other. You really want it to be mixed throughout.
Stumbling out of bed, and I still got you in my head. From all those pretty words you said, it's like I'm wasted. Every time I see your face, I'm losing track of time and space. I don't know where I am, it's like I'm wasted, and I won't waste it. And I promise that I will stand by you forever. I can't get you out of my mind. I will follow you now, 'cause I don't wanna slow this down. My heart is screaming out your name. I'm wasted on you. Here we are, right underneath the stars. So let's get a little reckless. You make me breathless, and I won't waste this. And I promise that I will stand by you forever. I can't get you out of my mind. I will follow you wherever, and I won't waste this. I'll follow you, yeah. Yeah, I won't waste this, 'cause no one makes me feel like you do. You make me breathless. Yeah, no one makes me feel like you do.
Alright, so this is unfortunate right here. We have a gap of maybe 3/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna have to take one piece out to the table saw and rip it down. On the other side of this island, it is the opposite problem. I've marked at each end where I have to cut this piece around it. And then I'm measuring from each side here, 4 1/4, 4 5/8. So I'll have to make an irregular cut around this island.
I promise that I will stand by you forever, and I won't waste this. I'll follow you, yeah.
So I wanted to mention a couple of things here that I didn't mention earlier. So when you slide the tongue and groove together on these, the locking system, you can just pop it in, and on most brands, it's gonna go right in, no problem. But if you look at it really close, you'll see a really small gap. And even if you don't see that gap, you want to tap it in with the tapping block anyway, because you want these locked in as tight as they can be. Okay, so like I said a second ago, this looks like it's in there all the way, but whenever I tap it, I just saw that move as I tapped it, so that means it was not all the way in. Another thing to keep in mind is that whatever you cut off of that end, you want to use to start the next row, unless that's going to cause your seams to be close to each other on consecutive rows. You want probably at least a foot of stagger on any seam. So if the piece you cut off from that end is going to have your next row start close to the last one, just cut a little more off the back side or start a fresh piece. I'm going to give some unpopular advice right here, but I don't really care. I'm going to tell you what I believe and what my experience has been in laying quite a few of these types of floors. They all tell you leave the 1/4 inch around the outside. I disagree. I'm going to nail that first row back there, and I'm going to work off of it. I'm going to nail around the vents, and I'm going to put everything right up against the walls. I understand the concept behind it, but this is a vinyl floor, not a wood floor. So this floor itself is not going to expand and contract. I understand the floor underneath it possibly could, and that the concern is if you don't leave that gap, that expanding and contracting could cause it to buckle or separate, I guess. But my experience from using laminates, vinyl, different thicknesses of vinyl plank flooring is that if you don't fasten it down or put it tight against the wall, it's going to separate. The last stuff I bought was like $4 a square foot. We're talking about a high-end product here. I followed all the instructions. I left the gaps at the outside. I got it all tied together, and 6 months later, there are places where those joints have pulled apart. If it's going to pull apart anyway, then what are we trying to save against by not fastening it down? Just my thoughts.
Went for a walk with the stars last night. Did not believe that I would end up right. Lucky endings were not something for me. I drove around all across the land. Thought that I was caught in a one-man band, but playing all those sad and lonely songs. My faith was lost, my hope was gone. My dreams were shattered and I was done. I was roaming down the street in my weary feet, and then you came along with the love so strong. You took me out of the cold into the fire. You picked me up when I'm down on the ground. Whenever I'm low, you will lift me higher. And when I am lost, you make sure that I'm found.
Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed that, or maybe picked up a few tips that could be helpful. Don't forget that the tools I used in the video will be in the description. And in just a second, we're going to roll a clip with links to more of our videos, so please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.